What happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, walked into the studio of Piers Morgan Uncensored, expecting another opportunity to polish his carefully crafted narrative. What he encountered instead was a man who had been waiting years for this moment, a broadcaster with nothing to lose and everything to prove. Within 45 minutes, the interview would descend into chaos. Accusations would fly like shrapnel, and one of them would be escorted from the building. This is the story of the night that shattered illusions and exposed the raw nerve of a prince who had forgotten that not everyone bows. The studio lights hummed with electric anticipation as the crew made final preparations. Outside, a light drizzle coated the London streets, but inside Studio 4 at Talk TV headquarters, the atmosphere was anything but dreary. It crackled with the kind of tension that precedes either brilliant television or complete disaster. Piers Morgan stood in the wings, adjusting his tie with the casual precision of a man who had done this thousands of times. His producer, Sarah, approached with a tablet displaying the evening's rundown. The history between Piers Morgan and Prince Harry was long, complicated, and increasingly toxic. What had begun years ago as professional acquaintance had curdled into something closer to open warfare. Piers had been relentless in his criticism of Harry's departure from royal duties, his media deals, his public grievances. Harry, for his part, had made it clear through various channels that he considered Piers the embodiment of everything wrong with British tabloid culture. So, why was Harry here? The official story was that he wanted to promote his latest charitable initiative, a mental health program for veterans. The unofficial story, whispered among media insiders, was that Harry's team believed he could handle Piers, that a direct confrontation handled well might finally silence his most persistent critic. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The studio audience settled into their seats as the countdown began. The familiar opening titles rolled, dramatic music swelling, and then the lights blazed as Piers strode onto the set with his trademark swagger. "Good evening, and welcome to Piers Morgan Uncensored," he announced, his voice carrying that distinctive blend of charm and challenge. "Tonight, we have a guest who needs no introduction, though he's certainly provided many of his own over the years. He's a prince, a podcaster, a memoirist, and depending on who you ask, either a courageous whistleblower or the most ungrateful man in Britain. Ladies and gentlemen, Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex." The applause was polite but measured as Harry emerged from backstage. He was dressed casually, dark blazer, open-collared shirt, designer jeans, projecting the California casual image he had cultivated since his departure from royal life. His smile was tight, controlled, the expression of a man entering territory he knew to be hostile. "Piers," Harry said simply, settling into the chair opposite his host. No handshake, no warmth, just the acknowledgement of a necessary transaction. "Your Royal Highness," Piers replied, and there was just enough emphasis on the title to make it sound like a question. "Thank you for joining us. I know this isn't exactly friendly territory for you." Harry's lips curved into something approximating amusement. "I've survived worse." "I'm sure you have, though one might argue that you've also caused worse." Piers leaned back, his posture relaxed but his eyes sharp. "But let's start with why you're here. Your foundation has launched a new initiative for veterans struggling with mental health issues. Tell us about it." For the next few minutes, Harry spoke about his work with veterans, his voice warming as he discussed a subject clearly close to his heart. He talked about the soldiers he had served with, the invisible wounds they carried home, the inadequate support systems that failed them. It was passionate, articulate, and, Piers had to admit, genuinely moving. "That sounds admirable," Piers said when Harry finished. "And I mean that sincerely. Your military service is something no one can take from you, and your advocacy for veterans is commendable." Harry nodded, perhaps surprised by the compliment. "Thank you. However," Piers continued, and the word hung in the air like a blade being unsheathed, "I do have to ask about the apparent contradiction. You've positioned yourself as a champion of mental health, yet your own public actions, the interviews, the memoir, the documentary, have arguably caused significant mental distress to members of your own family. How do you reconcile that?" The warmth drained from Harry's face instantly. "I don't accept the premise of that question." "Which part?" "The part where you assume my family's discomfort is more important than the truth. I've spoken about my experiences because silence was killing me. If that makes some people uncomfortable, that's not my responsibility. But surely, Piers pressed, there's a difference between seeking help privately and broadcasting your grievances to the entire world for profit. Harry's jaw tightened. There it is. The profit accusation. You've been waiting to use that one, haven't you? I'm simply observing that you've signed deals worth tens of millions of dollars to discuss the private affairs of your family. That's not therapy, Harry. That's commerce. It's storytelling, Harry shot back. Something your industry has done to me my entire life without my consent. The only difference now is that I'm the one holding the pen. Piers nodded slowly, as if considering this. Fair point. But when you hold the pen, don't you also hold responsibility for what you write? Your book contained allegations that caused real damage to your brother, to your stepmother, to your father. Do you regret any of it? I regret nothing, Harry said flatly. Everything I wrote was true. Everything, because some of your claims have been disputed, contradicted by other accounts, other witnesses. Disputed by whom? The same establishment that tried to silence me? The same media that profits from my misery? Harry leaned forward, his voice rising. You're asking me to apologize for telling my truth, and I won't do it. Not for you, not for anyone. The audience shifted uncomfortably. The energy in the room had changed, transformed from cautious interest to something more volatile. Piers remained calm, almost serene. I'm not asking you to apologize. I'm asking you to consider whether your truth might not be the same as the truth. Those are different things, you know. They're not different when you've lived what I've lived. Ah, Piers smiled thinly. And there it is, the lived experience argument, the ultimate conversation stopper. No one can question you because no one else has been you. That's not what I'm saying. It's exactly what you're saying. You've been saying it for years. You don't understand my suffering. You can't question my choices. My pain gives me immunity from criticism. It's a very convenient position, but it's not a very honest one. Harry's face flushed. You want to talk about honesty, Piers? Let's talk about your honesty. Let's talk about the years you spent defending phone hacking. Let's talk about the way you've made a career attacking anyone who doesn't fit your narrow little worldview. We're not talking about me. Why not? You want to hold me accountable, but who holds you accountable? Who questions your motives, your biases, your obvious vendetta against me and my wife? The mention of Megan seemed to charge the air with additional electricity. Piers's expression hardened almost imperceptibly. I'm happy to discuss my career and my choices, Piers said evenly. But you came here ostensibly to talk about your charitable work. If every question I ask is going to be deflected with accusations about my integrity, we're going to have a very short evening. Maybe that's exactly what you want, Harry snapped. A short evening where you can claim I couldn't handle the pressure. Another headline about the fragile prince who storms off when things get tough. I don't want you to storm off. I want you to answer questions, direct questions about choices you've made publicly. Is that really too much to ask? Harry stared at him, breathing heavily through his nose. The studio fell into an uncomfortable silence. Fine, Harry said finally. Ask your questions. All right. Piers shuffled his notes, though both men knew he didn't need them. Let's talk about privacy. You've said repeatedly that all you want is privacy for yourself and your family. Yet you've signed a multi-year deal with Netflix that has produced documentaries about your personal life. You've written a memoir detailing intimate family conversations. You've given interviews to Oprah, to American networks, to anyone who would listen. How is any of that consistent with wanting privacy? Harry sighed, as if explaining something to a particularly slow child. There's a difference between privacy and silence. I never asked for silence. I asked for respect. For the boundaries of my home, my children, my daily life. What I have chosen to share publicly is exactly that. My choice. The problem isn't sharing, it's being forced to share, having your life stolen and sold without consent. But you are selling it, Piers pointed out. You're selling it for millions. You're just keeping the profits instead of letting the tabloids have them. So now I'm supposed to apologize for being compensated for my own story? No, but you might consider not complaining about media intrusion while simultaneously courting media attention. It's a bit rich, don't you think? Harry laughed, but there was no humor in it. You really don't see the difference, do you? You're so deep in your own world that you can't distinguish between someone telling their own story and someone having their story stolen. I can distinguish perfectly well. What I struggle to understand is why your version of events should be accepted without question, while everyone else's is dismissed as lies or bias. Because I was there! Harry's voice rose sharply enough that several audience members flinched. I lived it! These aren't abstract debates for me, Piers. This is my life, my family, my reality. And I'm sick of people who weren't there telling me what really happened. Piers remained unnervingly calm. Your brother was there too. Your father was there. Your stepmother was there. And their recollections differ significantly from yours. Are they all liars? I didn't say they were liars. You've implied it. In your book, in your interviews, you've consistently positioned yourself as the sole truth-teller in a family of deceivers. That's a hell of a claim, Harry. It requires evidence. The evidence is in the book. The book is your account. That's not evidence, that's testimony. And testimony, as any lawyer will tell you, is not automatically credible just because it's sincere. Harry shook his head, his frustration mounting visibly. I don't know why I expected anything different from you. You've had it in for me since the beginning. Nothing I say will ever satisfy you because you've already decided I'm the villain. I haven't decided anything, Piers replied. I've asked questions. You've gotten defensive. That's not the same as persecution, no matter how much you want it to be. Defensive? Harry repeated incredulously. You've spent the last 10 minutes implying I'm a liar, a hypocrite, and a manipulator. What exactly would you call an appropriate response to that? I'd call it answering the questions instead of attacking the questioner. The tension between them had reached a fever pitch. The audience sat in rapt silence, aware they were witnessing something unprecedented. A real-time collision between two men who had been circling each other for years, finally meeting in the arena. You know what your problem is, Piers? Harry said, his voice dropping to something low and dangerous. You're jealous. You've always been jealous. Of my position, my platform, my ability to command attention without having to tear other people down. Piers's eyebrows rose. Jealous? Of what, exactly? The gilded cage you claim to have escaped? The family you've systematically alienated? The country you've abandoned while continuing to profit from its fascination with you? I haven't abandoned anything. I've evolved, something you clearly haven't. Evolution implies improvement, Piers shot back. What you've done is trade one kind of privilege for another while complaining about both. Harry stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor with a sharp screech. The camera operators scrambled to adjust their angles. This is ridiculous, Harry declared. I didn't come here to be insulted. You came here to promote yourself, Piers said, not rising from his seat. And when that didn't go as planned, you're going to walk away. How very predictable. I'm not walking away because it's not going as planned. I'm walking away because this isn't an interview. It's an ambush. You had no intention of having a genuine conversation. This was always about settling your personal score. Piers finally stood, and for a moment, the two men faced each other across the narrow space of the interview set. Personal score? Piers repeated, his voice carrying clearly through the silent studio. Harry, I barely think about you. What I think about is accountability. You've spent 3 years demanding that everyone believe your version of events while refusing to submit to any scrutiny. You've attacked the press while using the press. You've complained about invasion of privacy while invading the privacy of your entire family. And when anyone points this out, you cry persecution. I don't cry anything. You cry constantly. Piers' voice rose for the first time, sharp and cutting. Every interview is the same. Poor Harry. Misunderstood Harry. Victimized Harry. You're 39 years old, mate. At some point, you have to stop blaming everyone else for your choices and take some bloody responsibility. Harry's face went white, then red, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. Don't you dare lecture me about responsibility, he said, his voice trembling with rage. You, who hacked phones and ruined lives for headlines. You, who spent years attacking my wife because she didn't bow to your ego. You're the last person on earth qualified to talk about responsibility. I notice you're still not answering any questions. Because your questions aren't questions. They're accusations dressed up in interview format, and I'm done playing along. Harry reached for his microphone, preparing to remove it. Piers watched him with an expression that bordered on satisfaction. So that's it then? You're going to run away because the questions got too hard? I'm going to leave because staying serves no purpose. You don't want dialogue. You want content. Footage of me getting angry that you can replay for weeks. Well, congratulations. You got it. Harry yanked the microphone from his lapel, the sound crackling through the studio speakers. Piers raised a hand. Security won't be necessary, he said to someone off stage. His Royal Highness is leaving voluntarily. He turned back to Harry. Though, I have to say, this is a new low, even for you. You literally cannot endure 30 minutes of questions without fleeing. I've endured 30 years of people like you, Harry spat. This isn't fleeing. This is finally refusing to participate in my own destruction. Destruction? Piers laughed. Harry, the only person destroying you is you. Every time you open your mouth, you confirm what your critics say. You're entitled, you're thin-skinned, and you're utterly incapable of self-reflection. And you're a bully, Harry shot back. A aging, bitter bully who's watched the world pass him by and can't stand that someone he considers beneath him has more influence than he ever will. Piers' smile froze. For a moment, something genuinely hurt flickered behind his eyes. Then it was gone, replaced by ice. Get out of my studio, he said quietly. Gladly. And Harry, Piers called as the prince turned to leave. Next time you want to play the victim, maybe choose an opponent who hasn't been doing this longer than you've been complaining. You're outmatched here, and everyone watching knows it. Harry paused at the edge of the stage, turning back one last time. His face was a mask of contempt. Everyone watching, he repeated. That's all that matters to you, isn't it? The audience, the ratings. You'd sell your own mother for a viral moment. At least I haven't sold my family's private conversations for a book deal. The barb landed. Harry's composure cracked completely. You are nothing, he hissed. A nothing man on a nothing show, shouting into a void because you can't stand that the world has moved on without you. Enjoy your moment, Piers. It's all you have left. And with that, Prince Harry stormed off the set. The studio doors slammed behind him, with a finality that echoed through the stunned silence. Piers stood alone on the stage, straightening his jacket with practiced calm. He turned to face the camera, and when he spoke, his voice carried not triumph, but something closer to exhaustion. Well, he said, I think we can safely say that didn't go as anyone planned. He returned to his chair, settling in as if the preceding chaos had been nothing more than a minor interruption. What you just witnessed was a man who has spent years positioning himself as a truth-teller, a reformer, a voice for the voiceless. And when faced with questions, not attacks, not insults, but questions, he couldn't last half an hour. He accused me of bias, of jealousy, of running an ambush. But all I did was ask him to explain his own choices. Piers paused, looking directly into the lens. Prince Harry wants the world to believe he's a victim of circumstance, trapped by birth into a life he never chose. And maybe there's some truth to that. None of us choose our families, but we do choose our actions. We choose whether to burn bridges or build them. We choose whether to seek reconciliation or revenge. He leaned forward slightly. Harry has chosen. Tonight, he showed us exactly who he's chosen to become. Not a healer, but a fighter. Not a peacemaker, but a provocateur. He's become the very thing he claims to despise. Someone who uses media attention to settle personal scores while complaining about media attention. The studio lights seemed to brighten slightly, illuminating Piers' face with harsh clarity. I don't take pleasure in what happened here tonight. Contrary to what Harry believes, I don't have a personal vendetta against him. What I have is a commitment to asking difficult questions of powerful people. And make no mistake, despite his protestations, Harry is powerful. He commands headlines, influences discourse, shapes public opinion. That power comes with responsibility, and responsibility requires accountability. Piers stood again, preparing to close the show. To Prince Harry, if you're watching, the invitation remains open. Come back anytime you're ready to have a real conversation. Not a performance, not a rehearsed narrative, but an actual exchange of ideas. I won't hold my breath, but the door is open. He smiled, but it was a weary smile, the expression of a man who had won a battle he wasn't sure was worth fighting. That's all for tonight on Piers Morgan Uncensored. Thank you for watching. The lights dimmed, the cameras stopped rolling, and somewhere in the London night, a prince was already composing the statement that would dominate tomorrow's headlines. The interview had lasted 37 minutes. Its aftermath would last considerably longer.